Okay, hi everyone. It's Coach Jim, and today I'm going to talk about impact calculuses. What is an impact calculus? At the end of the debate, you will most likely be winning on some point, and your opponent will winning on another point. And debate isn't about like who is the most correct, because let's be honest here. It's very hard to successfully refute all of your opponent's points, so you have completely defeated them. At best, what you can do in the rebuttal speech is kind of try to mitigate their impacts, and I'll talk about that in my next video. But at the end of the debate, usually you're correct about something and your opponent's correct about something else. It's going to be very hard to completely disprove whatever points they're trying to make. And so, what impact calculus kind of goes into is comparing your impact against theirs and showing why your impact is more significant. Now, most people think, based on just a general background knowledge of debate, usually they would think that magnitude is the most important part of the impact. Now, magnitude, if you've never heard this word before, I originally heard this in the context of earthquakes. Magnitude is used by the Richter scale to measure the size and the severity of an earthquake. And so that's kind of like how I remember and how I learned the word magnitude. It's basically like how big or how severe the impact is. And it can be described in a lot of different ways. It's usually some overall number. It could be referring to like financial costs. So let's say, for example, you're doing a cost benefit debate, and I say, no, if this is a really bad idea, it's going to cost too much money, it'll collapse the economy. Or that the effectiveness, it's not very effective spending. It's better to spend this money on things that are like more effective, right? A lot of teams focus on like human lives at stake. One thing that drives me crazy when I judge policy debate is they'll just have like a single card and it's labeled like extinction. Which, okay, sure. But a lot of other times you could be talking about like effectiveness, or if you're running more of a moralistic, deontological case, you could be talking about like moral correctness. So the easiest way to explain magnitude is to compare like one thing to another, like one disaster scenario to another disaster scenario. Okay, so here is an example of a disaster scenario: getting hit by a pillow or getting hit by a durian. Now, my American followers or European followers may not be familiar with a durian. These are fruits that are common in Southeast Asia, and they are a very large, spiky, smelly fruit. Okay, and in fact, these fruits will fall out of trees, hit people in the head, and kill them. In fact, you're more likely to die of getting hit in the head by a durian falling out of a tree than a shark attack even. So, obviously, it would be a lot more painful, it'd be a lot more dangerous if someone hit you in the head with a durian than a pillow. But obviously, that's not the most dangerous thing in the world, right? Guns are more threatening than the durian. A single gun could kill dozens of people. Of course, guns are still not the most dangerous thing in the world. We have our favorite thing in policy debate: nuclear war. A nuclear bomb could destroy an entire city. Multiple nuclear bombs could wipe out all human life on Earth. Those of you in policy debate can find any sort of link to nuclear war that you can. It's amazing. So, what about other things? If you're a Star Wars fan, while a nuclear bomb can, wipe out life on Earth, a single nuclear bomb cannot destroy the entire planet, but the Death Star can. If you're not familiar with Star Wars, the Death Star is a weapon in outer space that can destroy entire planets. And you can keep on kind of like going on and on and on, finding different scenarios. A lot of different common, like, high magnitude impacts are things like, climate change, bioweapons, gray goo, which is like nanotechnology, nuclear wars, probably the most common, and a lot of different things like that. Economic collapses, famine, these sort of things could, threaten a lot of human lives. And so if you can prove that, like, whichever side you're on prevents these things from happening, that's a massive impact that you have. Okay, so like, policy debaters talk a lot about, like, you know, nuclear war, or even the current example that I show you from the Avengers, the Infinity Gauntlet. The chances of these things happening are quite low, which is where the second part of an impact calculus comes into, which is risk. Risk is how likely something will happen. So when it comes to risk, it usually refers to things that may have a smaller magnitude, but are a lot more likely to happen. Okay, so I'm giving an example here. I have some friends who are afraid of afraid of flying. They've never been in an airplane in their life. They probably will never go onto an airplane. I fly airplanes all the time, right? I'm sure many of you who go to debate competitions may go to, like, nationals, or like a TOC bid tournament or whatever, and you have to get onto an airplane and fly. Now, even if you're afraid of flying, it's kind of, like, silly that a lot of people who are afraid of flying drive in cars, because car crashes happen more frequently than plane crashes. The reason why people are afraid of flying is because a plane crash has a very high magnitude. In a single plane crash, hundreds of people can be killed, whereas in a single car crash, it could only be like 5, 6, or maybe only like 1 or 2 people. So when a plane crash happens, it's a really big deal, because a lot of people in that single event have died, in a single event. But every single day, car crashes happen. In fact, flying in an airplane is one of the safest ways to travel. You have a very, 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 very low risk of dying in a plane crash. So at that point, when you're weighing these sort of things, a lot of impacts have may not have the same sort of, like, magnitude, but they have a much higher probability of happening. So overall, it's more of an important thing. And at the end of this, I'll give you some examples. But the last part is important too when you're considering an impact, and this is what we call time frame. Now, time frame mostly refers to when. Like how, and it could be, like, really stated in 2 different ways. The first one could be, like, a sense of urgency. Like, in the picture I show you, we did a topic a few years ago in my circuit about what should governments prioritize: space exploration or ocean exploration. For those of you who are policy aficionados, you may know that they kind of just took, like, a policy debate topic from about 10 years ago and combined it with another policy debate topic. And yeah, anyway, so this was an actual round I judged on the topic. The pro team said that we should go and colonize space because in 4 billion with a B, by the way, years, the sun will explode and destroy the Earth. And so in order for humanity to survive, we have to colonize outer space. So that is an impact with an extremely high magnitude and also an extremely high risk. Now, the con side came up and they said, well, we need to explore ocean to find alternative sources of energy, because in 50 years, we're going to run out of oil. Now, even though running out of oil is not as severe as the sun exploding, this is an issue that we will encounter in our lifetime and something that needs to be taken care of. So when I made my decision, I was weighing, these 2 arguments were being weighed. And obviously, to me, even though the pro side had a very strong magnitude, the con side had a very strong sense of urgency. So I voted prioritize ocean exploration over space exploration because we need to do it now. And then maybe in like 1 or 2 billion years we can go, colonize planets. But we need to have energy in order to do that. Another thing you can do is in these sort of in a value debate, when you're evaluating like harms and benefits of a certain issue, one thing you can talk about is like short-term harms versus long-term benefits, or long-term harms versus short-term benefits, right? And so a good example of this would be the current nationals topic about social media being beneficial to democratic values. Now, one thing you could argue on the pro side is that I could talk about how a social media is getting a lot of young people involved in politics than previous generations. And the con side could talk about how a lot of the older people are falling victims to conspiracy theories. Now, you could argue that there's going to be a longer term benefit of getting younger people involved in politics because they're the future, right? A lot of these older people are going to die out in a few years, whereas younger people being engaged in politics could have a much more longer term benefit, right? So time frame can kind of be structured a few different ways, depending on whether you're doing a debate about like consequences, or choosing between doing like one idea or another, or it could be used in a way of like choosing harms and benefits. And so like in the big picture debate, a lot of people focus on like magnitude a lot. Like they'll be like, ooh, nuclear war, boom, scary. But one way you could like defeat these sort of arguments is if your impacts are related to issues that are happening like right now, like poverty. Like people die, even though nuclear war might wipe out like all life on Earth, the chances of that happening are very low. Meanwhile, we have an issue like poverty, which is killing people every single day over the course of a long period of time. So the probability people are dying right now, 100%. The time frame, people have been dying for thousands of years because of poverty, right? So you could argue in that case, even though poverty doesn't threaten everyone, it's threatening people right now. And that's a more serious issue that we need to take care of over this thing that you speculate may happen, but may not ever happen, right? And these are the things you need to be doing in the later debate rounds is comparing these different terms. Now, in front of the lay judge, they may not understand like magnitude, but you can say things like, my impacts matter more. But if you're debating in front of a professional judge, one thing that you could do in your last speeches, whether it's the 2NR or the 2AR or whatever, or the final focus speech, is give an impact calculus and say, we outweigh on magnitude because of these reasons. We outweigh on risk. Our risk is 100%. It's happening right now. So we win on magnitude, risk, and time frame. Therefore, vote for us, judge. Okay. Well, that's all for my lesson today. I hope you found this enlightening, and I'll see you in our later videos.